As I reflect on this past year, there's a lot of stories that I could tell, but one that keeps coming to mind is a story that took place this summer at base camp. As campers were arriving, these were junior high and early high school guys. One of the dads, who I've known for years, came up to me and told me that they had decided to foster a 16-year-old young man, that he was there, and he was there against his will. He did not want to be there, but they didn't have a choice, and so he was going to have to make the best of it, and he trusted us to do well in caring for this young man, and so he turned around, and the reality is that Christian was fine. He was not super eager, but he wasn't unpleasant, and participated as well as he needed to. We sought to care for him, throughout the day, um, and didn't push him to do things that weren't necessary. Everything was fine until Tuesday morning when we were all supposed to leave on our module trip. In this case, it was a whitewater canoeing trip, so everything has to be packed up. We need to be super efficient. I sent one of our junior counselors over to make sure everybody was moving, and Christian and another boy happened to not be quite up yet. So, what I neglected to tell our junior counselors, what I'd been told by this father, was that Christian was really eager to help, but did not want to be bossed around. So just appeal to his helpful nature, and everything would be fine. I didn't tell him that. So this young man went over and began to tell everybody what to do, and Christian dug in his heels in the sleeping bag. Began to move exceptionally slow, and his attitude significantly changed. Well, I found out about this a few minutes later when I was told by some really concerned junior counselors that Christian wanted to go home. He was super angry. So I went over and talked to him. In the end, I asked Christian if there's anything I could do. He couldn't go home. That wasn't an option. So what could I do to make his time there better? And he didn't have an answer. So I just told him, well, if you think of anything, let me know. And if it's within my power, we'll do it. Well, he took his chair, went off into the woods about 200 yards away, and sat there for the next few hours. And during that interval of time, as we're all getting ready and eating breakfast, and one of the things that I had my junior counselors do periodically would go over and interact with him. Do you want to pack up your stuff, or do you want us to pack it up for you? And then it came time to make lunches. So I sent somebody over to ask, do you want to make a lunch, or do you want somebody to make it for you? He said, I don't need a lunch. Okay, so I went to Tim, who was the junior counselor who had unknowingly started this altercation with this camper, and said, Tim, why don't you make the sandwich? Don't tell him you're doing it, just make a sandwich. Well, it was time to leave. So instead of having my junior counselors go over and interact with Christian, I decided to go over and to ask him, would you like me to move your things into the van, or would you like to do it? And he said, I'll do it. And he did. That was the big moment. He moved his stuff into the van, and we were ready to go. When we got to the place where we put our canoes in the water, it was time for lunch. Everybody was breaking out their sandwiches. Christian knew he didn't have a sandwich, and I knew he'd be hungry. So at that point, I went over to Tim. I said, Tim, take the sandwich that you made. Don't ask Christian if he wants it. Just give it to him and tell him it's here if you want it. And so Tim, the very person who Christian had been super angry at that morning, was the one who brought a sandwich, left it for Christian, and a sandwich changed everything. Christian's demeanor turned around, and rather than being there but not engaged, he became engaged and happy. And that was good. As the week progressed, Tim made an effort to spend time with Christian and to invest in him and to show him that he cared about him, that there was no hard feelings, and that he wanted to be friends and to be helpful. Another young man named Andrew found some areas of common interest and took that as an opportunity to interact with Christian and to really just seek to become friends. I didn't really expect anything to come of that, of significance, other than making Christian's life easier and our life easier as well. But the last night of camp, at campfire, as we always do, there was an opportunity, a challenge. If God is working in your heart, if there's anything you need to talk to a counselor about, go ahead and stay after campfire and talk to somebody. As I got up and walked away, I was hoping that Christian might stay, but didn't expect it. But as I walked past where they had been sitting, and Tim and Andrew had both positioned themselves purposefully near him just to show him their friendship, their desire to be near him, well, Christian had stayed. and they were talking, and they talked for well over an hour. And I found out later that Christian said he'd never experienced that kind of love before. He said, I don't know what is happening, but I've never felt this way before. And he unpacked a lot of his life and told these two young men things about his life that were really hard, that his foster dad, I found out later, said he never talks about those things with anybody. So the story, I think, is really impactful and powerful for a couple of reasons. You might think the story is really about Christian, and yeah, it is. But I think the story's more, for me, about the two counselors. Christian Service Brigade and our camping ministries provide a context where young men learn how to disciple. They learn how to love people. They learn how to work through challenging relational and emotional and spiritual situations. And those two boys, I don't know what's going to happen to Christian, but I know those two young men, and their lives are forever changed. So I want to wish you a Merry Christmas and thank you for your support of our ministry, whether it's financial or prayer or your time. You continue to help us make a difference.